Okay, I just wanted to make an additional note regarding the stuff I documented between, well, more recently, the additional encounters between March and April over the past few months of 2026 when I was getting my new passport done in Bangkok. During both trips when I dropped off the application and then went back to pick it up this month back in early April. And then there was a third trip as well, but that was kind of unplanned. But regarding the stuff I documented between March and April at the hotel at 12 p.m. in Bangkok, at the same time that was happening, my YouTube and Facebook timelines were absolutely getting just flooded with stories like these. Now, this one I started seeing, I still see it coming across my timeline too. But, in fact, this story I saw recently, there was other stories though as well. Stories like this and others, many others. Why is my screen locked? Right here. Yes, there was. This is another meme I found today, and it wasn't just memes either. It was also news articles from more unreliable sources like News Nation and Fox News, and like one of the videos that came across my timeline was that idiot Jesse Waters from Fox News talking about it. It's like, yeah, that looks like real reliable information, right? I'm pretty sure these stories, this guy died of cancer, but a lot of these stories I think are fake or why is my screen locked? Okay, whoop. Oh, the internet. Oh, I got the internet. Okay, the internet's down. That's why. Okay, but yeah, like this was one of the stories I started seeing more recently. And again, these memes are just examples, and it wasn't just memes. It's mostly memes, yeah, that kept flooding across my timeline. But it was also news articles as well. But those particularly that first night on the second trip in April this month when I went back to we stayed at the same hotel in Bangkok when I was picking up my passport. Like, particularly then, I started seeing other stories like these about missing or dead UFO researchers that suddenly start going across my timeline constantly, just excessively flooding my timeline. Like, also, not this particular meme, but I pulled this one today. But I think this individual particularly, in fact, the other stories I saw with his picture on it, I believe unless it was somebody else that looked like him, I believe he was wearing a military uniform. Actual scientists that these stories are supposedly about, but bottom line, people connected with UFO research. Like this one was one I noticed that's been suddenly circulating my timeline a lot recently. And notice this guy's looks. And notice his age, how close it is, but to mine. Okay. Again, I found this. This one's been more recently, but it was all kinds of other stories too. Several different stories regarding several different people connected to UFO research, either dead or missing, that suddenly started just flooding my timeline at the same time that stuff was happening. Particularly on the second trip when I went back to pick my passport up. And I think I remember it on the first trip too. But I remember that second trip, it suddenly started just excessively flooding across my Facebook and YouTube timelines, both. And just multiple different stories about multiple different researchers missing or whatever supposedly happened. I didn't stop to read the stories because I'm sure most of these stories are probably completely fake. And there was one other thing I didn't talk about on the video, because it was multiple different incidents that occurred on multiple different days. In fact, the first incident that occurred was on June 4th, 2024, when I got the first sighting on video. Okay, but that time though, it looked like they were just trying to maybe distract me or something, or I don't know, but this. Harassment and stuff and then November, there was another incident on November 1st, 2024, when one of those same people from the beach had followed me into the bank, here at home, a long way from the beach. So, yeah, and then again recently, when I was getting my passport done, picking up the dropping off the application back in March. The first day, I believe, was March 9th, and then picking it up here earlier this month in April, and it's done now. But and then I start seeing these stories flood across my timeline. And then after the second, or actually no, we went back a third time to Bangkok after I finished my passport. And then and then when we came back, though, it was right before Songkran. And I never took the bus before in Songkran. And it was like, well, the day before Songkran. And then the bus station was just in total gridlock because of the Songkran holiday. So it was pretty obvious that we were going to be taking a car, because it would have taken several hours to get on a bus. So I immediately turn around and walk out pretty quick after we realized how long the line was to get on a bus because of, holiday gridlock. And then we turn around, and then sure enough, there's a driver waiting right there for us. And he's ready to accept, long distance rides. We tell him we're driving like, 5 hours. But yeah, he's ready to take us. And then he drives down the road about 30 minutes, and then he has an electric car. And then he stops at a charging station and took 3 hours to charge his vehicle. And he had this sitting on his dashboard. Took 3 hours. In the time he charged his car, we could have been just about almost home by the time he finished charging his car. And then I noticed, like, he would get out, and then suddenly he started talking. There was, like, when we stopped at a charging station, like almost an hour, like 30 minutes, or maybe even more, like an hour away from Mo Chit bus station where he picked us up from. Like, far away. Then suddenly at the charging station, he's talking, and it could have been other cab drivers, I guess, but suddenly he starts talking to other people, around the charging station that he clearly knew. And we were there for, like I said, hours. And then he kept locking us in the back seat. And I would go to open the door, and sometimes it would be locked, or I would go to open it, and then the alarm would start going off. And I would close it, and the alarm and then the alarm would go off. And then he would push the button. And then I would go to open the door again, because it gets hot in the car. And then the alarm would go off again. He had the alarm set. Every time I would open the door, the alarm would go off. Or he would lock us in the back seat. And the driver was just acting really weird the whole trip. It took us a lot longer to get home than what it should have. And the traffic was actually good going back home. The holiday traffic was non-existent. The only thing that took a long time was when he stopped to charge the car. Because it's just kind of weird. Why wouldn't a driver sitting there at the bus terminal ready to accept a long distance ride, why would he not already be charged? We're driving home we're almost an hour down the road. I think it was more than 30 minutes. I think we were almost an hour down the road. And then suddenly he stopped to charge the car. And then we're there like over 3 hours charging the electric car. And he keeps like locking us in the back seat, or whenever I would go to open the door, the alarm would go off, stuff like that. And what else was it? Well, I'm sure there was a few other things too I think I might be forgetting to mention. But other than that, courteous. Other than that, he acted totally courteous, didn't say anything else. Just acted really weird, really peculiar. And then again, I just wanted to document that because I made some written notes about it that I posted publicly, but I didn't I wish I would have documented it all on one video, but again, it was multiple different incidents on multiple different days. Like I said, the first encounter with these people was on the beach, June 4th, 2024. And then again, November 1st, 2024. And then there was a few other times in Pattaya going back where I had some peculiar incidents as well. I forget the specific dates. But then again, more recently, March 9th, and then again in early April when I was, renewing my passport in Bangkok. That I previously documented on video, but I did not talk about the vehicle, the car driving back from the third trip after I finished my passport. I didn't document this, and I also didn't, I talked about it on the video, but I didn't emphasize, how my timelines on social media were just getting excessively flooded with all of these stories about these people. This one was more recent again, but I don't think I quite emphasized it. But my timeline, I wasn't just seeing the stories. My timeline at the time we were staying at the hotel was just getting excessively flooded with these stories, and I continue to see them every day. But particularly while we were encountering those people, while they were trying to intimidate me, talking about my, stuff on us, like that first encounter on March 9th, the guy was talking about what sounded like personal information about me on a cell phone. Like as we were walking out, I documented it on the video, but they were basically trying to intimidate me, at the hotel. And exactly the same time that stuff was happening, I started seeing all of these different stories about these people just excessively flooding my social media timelines. So I also wanted to document that as well. So I'll maybe put this video on YouTube and maybe put it in the comments of that post where I did the video at the hotel after I picked up my passport and talked about it. And there's also the videos where I documented the encounters on the beach as well as at the bank, 5 months later on November 1st, 2024 with one of those same people. And again, it was a lot of different incidents on multiple different days. So it was, kind of difficult to do it all on one video. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.